to do something different today. Bungie just posted the Season 20 weapon tuning preview. I'm very excited to read through it, so I figured why not read through it live? Um, so let's get right to it. Good day, Guardians. We're back with another weapons preview. In the Season 19 mid-season balance update, we brought in several changes to address weapons in PvP. PvP always getting in there somewhere, somehow, to change things up. In Season 20, with a new campaign and raid incoming, we focused on a substantial pass over heavy weapons for PvE, and adding subclass verbs to several exotic weapons, tying in with new anti-champion capabilities these verbs now have. Between the new weapon changes and everything else that's new or changing in Lightfall, we're looking forward to seeing what combinations players settle on for the legendary campaign and the Day 1 raid. And don't forget that Day 1 raid is going to be if I remember, the 10th, but I'll double check on that here in a little bit. Weapon archetypes. When playing on console, your reticle will turn red when it's over an enemy that's inside your weapon's effective range. This is normal. This is a useful visual aid that we've wanted to be global for a while, so we've also enabled this on PC. In a future season, we'll be making this color customizable, similar to the base reticle color. Red reticle is now enabled on PC. Um, wasn't there something like this already implemented when you hover over a friendly target? I feel like that was something that existed already. Also, that reminds me of No Land Beyond from Destiny 1. That was the thing that would give me the key to fire off my trigger, right? You'd see the little red reticle start to pop up when you're hovering over an enemy, if I remember right. I'm old. Linear fusion rifles. You probably saw this coming. Linear fusion rifles outperform other heavy weapons for boss damage by a wide margin and have had plenty of time in the sun. Yeah, I mean, everyone's using Taipan left and right for damage dealing. We're bringing them down enough for other options to compete. At the same time, exotic heavy linear fusion rifles don't do enough, correct, to justify using one over a legendary. Yeah, who's using Sleeper over Taipan? So they are not affected by this nerf. Reduced damage versus champions, mini bosses, and vehicles by 15%. Sleeper, Simulant, and Queenbreaker are unaffected. Sleeper fans, this is not a drill. Well, I mean, they're not bringing Sleeper up, so how is that going to compare against using galleys and other options? We'll find out. Machine guns. Machine guns have been buffed a few times over the past year or so, but only in PvE. Yeah, you try using a heavy machine gun in PvP, and it's like, man, why aren't these bullets slapping harder? We've opted to increase their base damage a little, which makes them more forgiving to use in PvP. Okay. The buff also applies across the board in PvE. That's nice. PvP damage is typically the base, and PvE has multipliers on top of that. We're also substantially increasing machine gun reserves, giving them higher uptime. Fantastic. Particularly useful in hard content. I wonder if that'll remove the necessity to use reserve mods when you're using a machine gun. I always felt like I had to. Too low. Increased damage by 10%. That's a nice bump. With the following effects on time to kill against the Guardian with Tier 6, high impact. TK reduced from 0.67 to half a second. I mean, how many people are rocking Tier 6? So that might still be about the same feeling. We'll see. Rapid fire frame. I know some people have been holding on to those Archon Thunders. Rapid fire frames. Time to kill reduced from 0.53 to 0.47 seconds. Adaptive. Time to kill changed at 0.53. Oh, unchanged. Excuse me. Increased reserve ammo by 50% at the 0 inventory stat and 20% at the 100 inventory stat. Inventory stat is a 0 to 100 value behind the scenes. This is presented as the actual number of rounds in game, but you can take this to mean that low reserves machine guns get a big boost, while large reserve machine guns get a smaller boost. Okay, that makes sense. Heavy grenade launchers, yeah, these have not been anywhere. I have not seen anyone using these. Heavy grenade launchers haven't been touched in a while and are substantially below some other heavy options for damage. On top of that, grenade launcher projectiles have travel time, a ballistic arc, and relatively small and a relatively small blast radius. So it can be hard to consistently land shots on a moving target, and they may hit fewer targets with the explosion than you expected. With this change, heavy grenade launchers should be significantly more useful in PvE and easier to use in both PvE and PvP. Increased damage versus champions, mini bosses, bosses, and vehicles by 20%, miners by 40%. Improved projectile collision, making it easier to land hits. That's nice. Always felt like my grenades would like go through an enemy and hit them on the feet instead of their chest, or whiff between their legs. Improved increased blast radius by 1 meter across the board. That's nice. Parasite's unaffected. It does huge damage already. True. Shotguns. The new shotgun reticles show the correct spread pattern, but in its shipping from the size of the reticle wasn't affected by the current spread angle, which will change if you jump or with magazine options like smoothbore. This change should make the reticle accurate in most ways at 85-degree field of view. So those folks playing way out in 120s, you watch out. A change to make this accurate for all field of view options will come in a future season. Shotgun reticles now change in size proportional to spread angle. Related note, the Legend of Akra's hipfire reticle is now a bit more representative of its very large spread angle. Who of you out there are hip-firing Legend of Akras? Let's be honest. Let me know. Is that the deal with that shotgun? Do people even use that? That's from year one. Kinetic weapons. Kinetic slot weapons have always done 5% more damage versus unshielded targets in PvE. This meant that kinetic slot stasis weapons were straight up better, with extra functionality and no downside. It's true. We wanted to give players more of a reason to run kinetic damage type weapons, so instead of a blanket kinetic slot damage boost, we're switching to a kinetic damage type boost based on whether your kinetic weapon uses primary or special ammo, and increase the bonus significantly. Okay, so kinetic primary weapon damage multiplier increased from 105 to 1.1. That's toasty. Kinetic special weapon damage multiplier increased from 0.05 to 0.15. So all those primary grenade launchers and sniper rifles are going to be looking pretty toasty also. Ooh, kinetic slugs like Blasphemer. Kinetic slot stasis weapons no longer have the 5% damage bonus versus unshielded targets in PvE. There's also a kinetic damage type perk. Ooh, something specific to all of our very normal weapons is coming soon. Look out, Mishka. All right, on to exotics. Just like many players, we've wanted exotic weapons that have a strong theming around their damage type to use the real subclass 3.0 verbs. And Lightfall's longer development and playtest cycle gave us the opportunity to add subclass verbs to many of the top picks. Our goal with adding subclass 3.0 verbs is to grant these weapons additional functionality and let them tie to subclass builds in a more meaningful way, Mishka. In most cases, this is also, or is paired with, a hefty buff. Oh, we're starting with Queen Breakers, guys. Look at this. The Queen Breaker's blinding effect was underwhelming, yes, for a heavy weapon. So we've changed how that's deployed. Note that Queen Breaker was also not affected by the global damage reduction to LFRs, making it substantially stronger by comparison. Shot now chains to nearby enemies and uses Arc 3.0 blind. It's going to be very bright. Ruinous Effigy feels very voidy, and slamming these transmutation sphere was an obvious place to put an additional effect. Transmutation sphere slam attack now suppresses. That's excellent. How many times did you go into a group of ads just to have them overwhelm you anyways? The Leviathan's breath buff from a few seasons back inadvertently reduced the PvP damage enough that it could no longer one-hit kill players in their super with a headshot. We fixed that, but also added Volatile and increased the damage versus champions substantially to highlight its anti-champion role. Does that mean it has an extra explosion now? Now applies Volatile on perfect draw impact, increased damage from 396 to 442. That's a heck of a jump. This allows it to once again one-hit kill all supers in PvP. Increased damage versus champions by 30%. Oh, 1,000 Voices. 1,000 Voices was briefly a top pick in Season 14, but has been eclipsed by other options since then. We wanted to lean even more into a chain of solar explosions by adding Scorch. Excellent. And with the global heavy weapon changes, it's also a strong option. If you have Ember of Ashes equipped, landing a full burst on a single target will trigger an ignition immediately. Great. Exact results may vary depending on whether other players are also scorching a target. What does that mean? Each explosion now applies 10 plus 5 with Ember of Ash's Scorch stacks. Man, I'm going to want to test that. I want to get a whole group just running 1,000 Voices and see what kind of results may vary, kind of status will occur. Sunshot was a top candidate for applying solar subclass verbs, and the explosions are the clear place to add to. Explosion on kill now applies 10 plus 5 Scorch stacks. Excellent. Polaris Lance always had a burn effect, so it was an obvious change to switch this to Scorch. Yes, perfect fifth shots now apply 40 to 20 Scorch stacks instead of a custom burn. That's fine. Two-tailed Fox had tough competition as a heavy exotic weapon, but now it's the only weapon that can apply subclass verbs for multiple damage types without extra steps. That's cool. I'm glad they're doing that. Solar Rocket now applies 60 to 30 Scorch stacks instead of a burn, and the Void Rocket already applies Suppress, and the Catalyst completes the Trifecta. I forget what the Catalyst does. Let's take a quick look here. I don't remember what the Catalyst does. Oh, the Catalyst that's coming with Lightfall, it looks like. That's excellent. Hey, Eco, thanks for joining. I just decided, why not read the patch notes? So, going through it here. Prometheus Lens has utility with its Solar 3.0 rework, but we wanted to give it something more spectacular on kills in addition. Added the Incandescent perk to the Catalyst. That's cool. Grand Overture has been getting some attention this season also. Just kind of stockpiling up on its R effect is what I hear is really good. Grand Overture's latest buff, increasing the missile's damage by 50%, yep, brought it up plenty, and it just needed its blind updated to tie into Arc 3.0. Cool. Switch the Catalyst to use Arc Blind. Very cool. Ooh, Hipfire Reticles. What are you doing to me, Bungie? We're starting to experiment with hipfire weapon reticles conveying more information, okay, and use the Manticore as a testbed for this. You can expect to see more weapon type or exotic weapon functionality showing up in hipfire reticles in Season 21 and beyond. Added a reticle element to the Manticore, showing current stacks of anti-grav repulsor. I'll have to take a peek at Manticore again, see what the hipfire shot reticle is all about with them. All right, perks. On to perks. With Strand coming to the game, along with a new Strand weapon damage perk, we've updated a couple of older perks. And we saw in the trailer from yesterday, the exotic weapons and armor trailer, that there's definitely going to be a Strand damage type, which is good to know. Osmosis right out the gate for Lightfall will work with Strand. Cool. Elemental Capacitor now has the following effect when using a Strand subclass. Oh, look at that. Leading into airborne effectiveness. Plus 20 AE. Plus 25 for the enhanced perk. That's good to know that they're already looking at these right away for Strand. I'm not going to say this right because I always mess it up, everyone. Rewind rounds will be appearing on more weapons in Lightfall, but was custom built to only work with the Vault of Glass weapon set. We've tweaked it to be a bit more general purpose. Rebuilt to work on non-Vault of Glass weapons. That's cool. I wonder what they'll put those on. Eager Edge, oh boy, Eager Edge has some bugs that needed addressing in a previous release. We've now taken the time to do a more complete rework, which also lets us reduce or remove most of the restrictions that were in place. No longer deviates when moving faster than 35, millimeters? Meters per second. Deactivates correctly after a single melee swing. Reduce the base lunge distance from 2 to 1.8. How about just keep them from slamming your teammates into walls? Reduced airborne lunge distance penalty from 25% to 20. And the enhanced perk now increases lunge distance slightly, back up to 2. So get your enhanced Eager Edge if you want to feel like the crazy cyborg teleporting ninja that you are. Blinding grenades on grenade launchers don't do arc damage. What? So it's not appropriate for them to trigger Arc 3.0 blind effects. That's referring to the grenade perk. Got it. We didn't feel the need to change their disorienting effect though, so we've updated them. We've updated the name to overlap less. Renamed blinding grenades to disorienting grenades. Man, these these grenades have gone through so many different changes in the last 2 years here. It's funny. Weist Stinger is one of the most desirable origin traits in the game. Yeah, it's great, particularly, but not only on linear fusion rifles, to the point where it makes it hard for non-Weist weapons to compete. If needed, it needed some adjustment. With this change, it's still valuable, but more in line with other origin traits. This was typically a full reload when the perk activated. It now reloads 25% of the magazine. Was it a full reload? I never felt like it was a full reload when it procced. I always felt like I gained maybe 2 to 3 extra rounds when it procced. I don't know. That's funky. I guess I didn't pay enough attention. The future. We're already hard at work on seasons 21 and 22, and some of the changes we're making include adding a full auto melee accessibility setting, which will apply to all forms of melee, a passover weapon type, and exotic weapon hipfire reticles, including increasing how visibly they change even at high field of view, and adding features like charge meters and exotic perk counters. We've also got ballot changes in the works, but it's a little too early to get into them. We'll have more information to share post Lightfall. All right. Well, that'll wrap up the season 20 weapon tuning preview. Thanks for hanging out. I will see you all next time.